And as you write them, though, hit enter only when the question is complete. If you hit enter while you're writing your question, and it creates multiple small questions that come to me, and it becomes very hard for me to manage on the site. Okay, all right. And then I am creating a recording of tonight's event. And if everything goes as planned, I will go ahead and get that out to you tomorrow, somewhere between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, Austin, Texas time. So look for that in the morning, okay? And then let's see. Oh yeah, as I'm reading as we're going through the questions, I will post them on your screen, so you'll be able to see them, but only if you're in the recorded version or in the live version. The recorded version, the posting to your screen doesn't work. So I will read these questions out loud. So for those people that only see this in a recorded version, they're able to have it as well too. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Hello, Shauna. Let's see. Have you researched any vitamin supplement patches? Sometimes I'm too nauseous to take pills. Plus, I'm just sick of taking pills all day long, every day. I use tinctures and powders where I can, but would love the ease of patches. Would you ever consider having patches produced? I'm thinking it also increases absorption. So first of all, I've decided a long time ago that I would never turn into a manufacturer of supplements. That's a business I would rather not do, because my goal is always with my supplement store is to offer the best products that are out there. And I recognize that I don't know if I always would make the best product. So I don't want to be biased in what I represent, but rather I'd rather represent the best of what I think is out there, basically. All right. So no, I don't see that happening. Secondly, I'm not aware that anyone actually even offers patches for vitamins, and probably because it would be very hard to get the amount of substances that you need absorbed through your skin. So I don't think it would work, actually. One way to get vitamins in large quantity is actually get vitamin drips, IVs, but that can be expensive. So unfortunately, I don't have a good solution for you there, but thank you for that question. And good luck to you. Hello, Carol. Let's see. If on long-term antibiotics, is it best to pulse 3 weeks on, 1 week off, especially for Bartonella? All right. So let me try to answer this in a couple parts. So first of all, I don't like pulsing for Bartonella and Babesia. I do think there may be a reason to pulse with Borrelia. And having said that, let me round that out a little bit, okay? So the idea of pulsing is you take antibiotics for a while and then you stop for a while, okay? And one of the reasons that could be a good idea is that when there's, especially for Bartonella and Borrelia, is that those germs have the ability to go into hibernator states if they're if the germs are seeing antibiotics on a regular basis, okay? And what happens, what laboratory experiments tell us, so what a hibernator is, we call those persisters. Generally, in your body, most of your germs are in a growing state, and things that are in a growing state respond to antibiotics better than things that are in a hibernator state. If germs are exposed to antibiotics for a while, in the case of Borrelia and Bartonella, some of those germs will turn into what are called persisters, or the hibernators. And the hibernators are more difficult to treat. In fact, we're still trying to discover things that are going to treat them well. And there are some things, okay? But so what happens when you're not on antibiotics and you've got hibernators is they will shift back into a growing state again, all right? So on theory, that would be one way to be able to get at persisters, is just do pulsing of antibiotics. Now, for Babesia and Bartonella, and again, Babesia probably doesn't have persisters, or they haven't been discovered, I'll put it that way. For Bartonella, and I'll talk about Borrelia Lyme in a minute, but for Bartonella, the issue with pulsing is that Bartonella grows fast. In fact, it replicates itself every 24 hours. And so during the period when you're not on antibiotics, there's a good likelihood that a lot of the germ is growing back, okay? By comparison, Borrelia grows a lot slower. And by some estimates, it's every week to even a month or 2 months that it replicates, okay? So if you stop antibiotics and you're on a Borrelia treatment, Lyme treatment, the germ is just not going to grow back quickly. And therefore, it's okay to stop periodically and let those germs have a chance to go back into a growing state where they'll respond better to the antibiotics, okay? In theory, okay? All right, now, what I have found in my practice is that the majority of people do not do as well pulsing as they do just taking antibiotics continuously, whether you're talking Borrelia or whether you're talking Bartonella and Babesia, okay? And so that's just a general thing I've observed. There are some people that pulse quite well, but for the majority of people, I don't find pulsing to be that helpful for Borrelia, and I never like to do it for Bartonella, okay? All right. Thanks for that question, Carol. Hello, Heather. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for doing this. You're welcome. I have Lyme, Babesia, and tularemia, and one of my worst symptoms is neck pain. I have an arthritic type pain, and my neck creaks and cracks when I turn my head, but the worst pain is from muscle tension, spasms up there and around my shoulders. Every rheumatologist I've seen has recommended Plaquenil. I've been too afraid to start it due to eye complications and learned from you that it can cause neuropathy. How common are these side effects? I can't find a medication that helps these neck spasms, so I'm desperate. I also have the ankylosing spondylitis gene, and changes on imaging studies suggest that that could be the cause of my pain. What are your thoughts? And should Plaquenil be paired with an antibiotic? I'm treating with just herbs right now. Thanks. Okay. All right. So anyhow, pain in the neck that has a lot of cracking and popping is often seen in Borrelia, right? So when I hear cracking and popping and pain in the neck, I'm thinking Borrelia. You have a complicating factor here, though, that you have the ankylosing spondylitis gene, and some of the changes that you're seeing in your neck suggest that you've got arthritic changes, bone changes secondary to that ankylosing spondylitis. All right, so maybe you've got two things leading to your neck pain. Maybe you've got a combination of Borrelia and the effects of the ankylosing spondylitis. So Plaquenil, everyone, many of you are aware we use it in Borrelia, but it gained fame during COVID as a potential treatment for COVID. But we use it in the world of Lyme for a number of reasons. And so first of all, Plaquenil is very effective as an anti-inflammatory and can help with cytokine inflammation as well too, all right? It is safe to use as long as you don't use high doses of it. So at doses that control inflammation, which is 200 milligrams twice a day, which is a common dose we'll use in the world of Lyme treatment, it actually is good as an anti-inflammatory, and you don't have any risk of getting the eye changes that you're talking about. If you start dosing at doses higher than 200 milligrams twice a day, there is a risk of developing retinitis, which is inflammation in the back of the eyeball. And so when you start using doses above 200 milligrams twice a day, we advise that you have regular eye doctor exams to screen for that retinitis. At one time, when I started people on it as 200 milligrams twice a day, I would refer people regularly, like every 3 months, to the eye doctors to get screening for retinitis. And I started getting notes back from the eye doctors telling me, don't do it. You're not using a dose that leads to the retinitis. And so I looked into the research on that. And that's true. At 200 milligrams twice a day, there is not a risk of retinitis. All right. All right. Now, Plaquenil is a quinine-like medicine, and quinine-like medicines rarely lead to neuropathy. And at a 200 milligram twice a day dose, I have not seen that happen, but it's a rare complication. And it is reversible if you stop the Plaquenil, basically. Okay. So I think you would be safe enough to do it. All right. Now, in the world of Lyme, we use Plaquenil for the following reasons. Number one, it can help with the inflammation. All right. Number two, it is useful as part of certain Babesia treatments. And so you can use a combination, for instance, of Proquenil, which is a quinoline in the same family as tefenaquine. You can use Proquenil I'm just blanking. I'll have to go look at it here in a minute. But it could be part of a Babesia treatment, a primaquine. That's what it is. So there's many of you be familiar with one of the new Babesia wonder drugs is something called tefenaquine. Well, a brother sister of tefenaquine is in the same family of quinolines and is called primaquine. And you can do effective Babesia treatment using primaquine coupled with Plaquenil. Okay, so we'll use it in that situations. And even there, I haven't seen people get neuropathy on that too. Okay, all right. So we can use it anti-inflammatory. We can use it as part of a primaquine-based treatment for Babesia. And then finally, Plaquenil is effective at changing the acid balance inside of your cells, and which can help your intracellular antibiotics like the tetracyclines, which is doxycycline, minocycline, and like the macrolides, which are clarithromycin, azithromycin, work more strongly. Okay, so we sometimes get better benefit out of those medications as well too. All right, and I would say in all the years of using it, I never had anyone get retinitis. At some point, I stopped screening for retinitis just because at the doses that we use it, we don't need to. And then secondly, I think I maybe had 1 or 2 people in all the years I practiced that developed neuropathy, which was able to resolve once we got them off of the medication. Okay. All right. So yeah, I think you'd be okay doing that. Okay. And yeah, I think it's a reasonable thing to consider because you may have 2 components to your pain. One would be from Borrelia, but also with this ankylosing spondylitis too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Heather. And thank you for that question. All right. Let me just do a quick screen share here because I want to show everyone. I mentioned Babesia treatment here, and tefenaquine is quite the rage, but there's also the brother sister of tefenaquine. And I want to just show you where you find that information. All right. So let's see here. All right, so this is my Lyme information site, and take a look at my online Lyme guide. Look in the infection treatment plan section here, and then scroll down to see my Kills Babesia, a brief guide article. And there's a lot of things you need to do. One is take steps to boost your immune system. I talk about it up here, but ultimately you need to be on germ killers. And I break my strongest treatments into 2 different families. There are what are called atovaquone-based treatments, and there are what are called quinoline-based treatments, okay? And your main 2 quinoline medicines are the primaquine and tefenaquine, okay? And so I like pairing my primaquine with Plaquenil, which is hydroxychloroquine. Tefenaquine now is quite the rage. It's a very effective medication. It's hard to get at times, and therefore I often like using this primaquine. Plaquenil is another alternative. Okay. All right. Let me see. I think you had. Anyhow, I hope that answers your question. All right. Oh, can you use it with herbal antibiotic? Yeah, there's no problem with that at all. Okay. Hello, Kelly. Let's see. Thanks again for telling me which IGeneX test to get. My results should be here any day now. I learned from another Lyme expert that even if the results appear negative on the surface, it is still possible I have PTLDS if I have a ton of the other signs. Any thoughts? How do you usually read these tests? I heard something different about bands. All right. So PTLDS stands for post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, I think is what you're referring to. I don't care for the term. Let me talk about that. So the people that came up with this thing called post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome are the infectious disease doctors out there who largely don't agree that there is something called chronic Lyme disease. And so what they tend to do is if somebody does a standard 3 weeks of doxycycline and they don't get better, they tend to think it's because it's either an immune reaction or there's a lot of injury from the Lyme and there isn't anything that can be done. The majority of us that treat people in that situation call it chronic Lyme disease because we actually think that one of the major reasons people still have illness is that they have living germs still, okay? Or they have other tick-borne infections that got missed initially as well too. So I like to call chronic Lyme disease or chronic Bartonella or chronic Babesia, depending on what the main symptoms are, which acknowledges that there is an ongoing persistent infection in you, which again, the majority of infectious disease doctors just read the science wrong, and they don't think that's what it is. Okay. Now, I will agree that for some people with ongoing symptoms, it is not just having active infections. It can be immune dysregulation. It can be tissue injury. It can be chronic mast cell activation. It can be chronic mold toxicity. It can be a whole bunch of other things that we need to consider and take care of as well too. All right. But I think for the majority of people with chronic symptoms, this actually means they've got living germs in you. Okay. All right. So then regarding bans, all right. So I had probably suggested that you do the Immunoblot methodology for looking at Borrelia. And so let's talk about what bans mean on that. All right. So basically, all the protein. So what we're doing with an Immunoblot is we're looking to see, does your immune system make antibodies against proteins found on the covering of a Lyme germ? Okay. And these proteins all have similar weights. And if we were to take these proteins, put them on a cellulose test strip and run electricity through it, each of these proteins would fall out in a different place on the test strip, and they would look like bands as we add coloring agents to them. All right. So all that a band is proteins that weigh the same amount. All right. So when we look at these Immunoblot tests, we're looking to see if you make antibodies against these different proteins, and we identify them by what they weigh. We consider testing positive if you have antibodies on your IgM and or your IgG against 2 of the following 6 bands, okay? And so those bands are 23-25, 39, 41, 23, 25, 31, 34, 39, 41, and 8393. All right. Those are the 6 bands. And we look to see, do you have antibodies against at least 2 of them? If you do, that's a positive test. I do agree in the one thing that a negative test does not exclude having illness, given especially what happened with you. And so, although I may not call it post-treatment Lyme disease, if you still have a lot of symptoms, you need to consider whether to keep treating longer or not. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Kelly. Hello, Louise. Let's see. Thank you so much for your wisdom, kind heart. You're so appreciated. Thank you. Appreciate that. I have Morgellons, and I'm currently on your BBB protocol of Japanese knotweed, cryptolepis, cinnamon clove, oregano. Also taking ashwagandha, curcumin, daily vitamin. Any further suggestions? Also hypothyroidism. Should I be concerned about alpha-gal with armour? What do you think of Cytomel? Thank you. All right. Well, let's start with the thyroid question here. So, alpha-gal, everyone, is a condition that happens from a bite of a Lone Star tick. There's actually a tick called a Lone Star tick. It's not from Texas, but it has a white area on the back that looks like a Lone Star. Okay, and Lone Star ticks can basically transmit a sugar into your blood, and you develop antibodies against that sugar. And it happens to be a sugar that's found in red meat. Okay. So people with alpha-gal that get transmitted that's transmitted to them by a Lone Star tick bite develop allergies to red meat, specifically the alpha-gal sugar that is in red meat. All right. And so the treatment is avoid red meats, and typically over a 2 week or 1 to 2 year period of time, most alpha-gal will resolve as long as you stay away from the thing that provokes it. Okay. All right. Now, the question about whether armour, I'm going to tell you, I haven't looked at the science on this. Okay. But I think that armour is safe to do. All right. Because Armour is an extract of is ground up thyroid gland, not meat from pork or from cow. All right. I think most of it is actually pork. I don't think it's actually red meat or from cows that have red meat. But either way, it's not the meat that is ground up. It's actually ground up thyroid gland, which should not have alpha gal in it. So I think you would be okay doing that if you need Armour thyroid as part of regulating your thyroid illness. Okay. So Armour, everyone, is desiccated thyroid gland or ground up thyroid gland. You know, our thyroid gland sits here in the neck. Our thyroid gland actually makes two types of thyroid hormone. One is called T4 and the other one is called T3. There's a couple of differences in T4 and T3. The major one is that T4 has 4 pieces of iodine and T3 has 3 pieces of iodine. All right. But and then the second big difference is your thyroid gland makes about 90% T3 and 90% T4 and about 10% T3. All right. But the other big difference is what is used by your tissues. So your tissues thrive on T3, and all that T4 that gets made by your thyroid gland gets into your bloodstream, goes out to your tissues, and then the tissues, it's converted into T3. All right. So that's what's active in your tissues. Cytomel is synthetic T3, basically. All right. And the main reason that I wind up using Cytomel is if I've got somebody with a type of thyroid illness, which I call peripheral hypothyroidism, which is a condition where they're not able to convert their T4 into T3 inside the cells. The way you find out that somebody has that as part of their hypothyroidism is you measure something called a reverse T3. You also measure T3, T4, and TSH. And if somebody has a high reverse T3, the only way you get a high reverse T3 is if your T4 is not being converted into T3. So T4 has a choice after it leaves the thyroid gland. It can either become T3 or it can become reverse T3. There is a theory that one of the things that our body will do when we're under stress is try to go into hibernation. All right. And one way to go into hibernation is not let your T4 become T3, but park it all as reverse T3. All right. So it's a way of slowing you down. The trouble is it can be a way of fatiguing you. So the only times I like really using Cytomel is if I have somebody with a high reverse T3. In that situation, the way you treat their low thyroid is to give them T3, which is the Cytomel. All right. So anyhow, that's the main reason I wind up using Cytomel in my treatments. Okay. And then in terms of, your Japanese knotweed crypto, so that treatment, the Japanese knotweed crypto and cinnamon clove oregano, all of those work effectively on Bartonella and on Borrelia. Okay. And then within that combination, crypto is a pretty good antibabesial, and the clove has some weak science showing it might be antibabesial. But the main thing you might want to look at doing on this regimen, if you are tolerating this regimen okay, is beefing up the Babesia treatment. And one way you could do that is by adding artemesinin in. And you could take a look at my Kills Babesia article about how I suggest using the artemesinin, but that might be a reasonable way to beef that up just a little bit as well too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Louise. Hello, Kelly. Again, let's see. The reason I suspect post-treatment Lyme disease is because I was bit by a big black fly at 2 years old, and my entire right side of my face was swollen with eyelid completely closed shut. The doctors apparently told my parents the worst case scenario was brain infection, but they pumped me up with antibiotics. And I heard it was very difficult for them to do, so they kept having to stab my foot with the needle repeatedly. Thought I was fine. Am I crazy to think this incident resulted in Bartonella-based OCD? The only way, it is possible that a biting fly could have transmitted Bartonella to. That is possible. There's even some European evidence that shows that maybe black flies can transmit Lyme too. It's not strong evidence, but there's a suggestion from European data as well too. But the only way to really know are those things to can even consider with you is do the testing. So wait and see what your Immunoblot testing shows for both of those. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Kay. Let's see. Hi, thanks for all you're doing. You're welcome. Rifampin and azithromycin are helping me, but there's an inactive ingredient in all rifampin products I have to avoid. I've seen drugs Rifabutin and rifabutin. Are they similar, and could they be substituted? So yes, they can be. But let me round that out a little bit, not just say yes. All right. So the rifampin is in a family of medicines called the rifamycins, okay? And rifabutin is a good substitute for rifampin, and in some instances may even work more strongly, all right? The Rifabutin, let's see what Rifabutin is. I don't know that one off the top of my head. Hold on, just a minute. I'm looking into my drug directory here. Oh, Rifabutin is rifampin. It's a trade name for rifampin. All right. So rifabutin is a different drug. It's not a rifampin. It's its own type of rifamycin. All right. And the way that you dose it is it comes as a 150 milligram pill. And I have people take 2 pills 1 time a day. If you really wanted to go strong on it, you could do 2 pills twice a day. Okay. But it's a good substitute for rifampin. It may even be stronger. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Let's see here. Oh, let's see. Hi, Carol. Let's see. If Plaquenil gives you benefit inflammation, does low-dose naltrexone work the same way? So low-dose naltrexone versus Plaquenil. Let's talk about that. So Plaquenil basically interferes with the production, the factory production of cytokines. Okay. All right. Versus what low-dose naltrexone does is it works at a higher level. So cytokines are made by white blood cells that are fighting infection. Those fall into a group of cells called Th1 inflammation. Okay. There's also some that fall into another group called Th17. The difference between Th1 and Th17 based inflammation in cells are Th1 is basically cells that fight infections that have already been identified by the immune system. Th17 is made up of cells that are kind of in your defense systems, in your skin, lining your mucous membranes, that are there to catch unidentified, never seen before by your immune system infection. All right. And both of these can produce cytokines in excess. And so these cytokines are made within white blood cell factories. All right. All right. What low dose naltrexone does, well, let me round that out. There's another group of inflammation called Th2. Th2 is inflammation and immune system that functions based on antibodies and also your allergy system or your mast cell system. Okay. All right. Now, these Th1 inflammation, Th2, and Th17 systems and inflammation are regulated by a type of cell that sits above them called a Treg. All right. T regulatory cell. So T regulatory cells determine how much Th1 you're going to have, how much Th2 you're going to have, and how much Th17 you have. All right. And if there's dysregulation of Tregs, then you get imbalances here. So one way to create balances here between Th1, Th2, Th17, which therefore will then result in less inflammation from all of these, is to make your Tregs work better. All right. And what makes Tregs work better, there's two things I like to consider to do that. One is low-dose naltrexone. So naltrexone is a medication that is made to help people with addictions, narcotic as well as alcohol addictions. And it's made in a pill. It's a 50 milligram pill. But when we're using it to help with to do Treg management and pain management in the body, we use it as something called low-dose naltrexone, which is we have it manufactured by a compounding pharmacy as a 1.5 milligram pill. And we eventually get people dosed up to about 4.5 milligrams a day. All right. So low-dose naltrexone has a variety of things that it does in the body, but one of those is to help your Tregs do better, basically. All right. The other thing that can help Tregs work better is a peptide called Thymosin Alpha A, which is no longer available. All right. But there are some peptide, what are called bioregulators, that work at a genetic level to get the thymus gland, which sits here in your chest, to manufacture more of a natural thymosin A. All right. And those bioregulators, one of them is called Thymogen and Thymosin A2, I believe. Those are the two bioregulators, and they are found in a product by integrative peptides called Thymosin or Thymogen Alpha 1, not thymosin, but Thymogen Alpha 1. And that peptide product aims to act like Thymosin Alpha 1 does, which also can affect your Tregs. Okay, so if you're trying to get balance between Th1, Th2, and Th17, the best way to do that is affect T regulatory cells. And the two things that can do that are low-dose naltrexone and then working with this product that mimics Thymosin Alpha 1 called Thymogen Alpha 1 by integrative peptides. All right, so those are two ways to do it. You can regulate cytokine inflammation, therefore, directly with like a Plaquenil, or herbally, you can use a curcumin. I like doing it with curcumin. And you can do Treg regulation with an LDN and with a Thymogen Alpha 1 if you want to. Okay. So I usually use the LDN interchangeably. So I'm either doing LDN or I'm doing the Thymogen Alpha 1. All right. Now, keep in mind, you can use LDN for more than Treg regulation. All right. So LDN also binds to a receptor in your brain that can help regulate pain throughout the body. So it's good for myalgia type pain, separate from inflammation. Okay. And the other thing that it's really good is it binds to a receptor on your mast cells called toll receptors, making it so your mast cells don't manufacture as many histamines and cytokines when you have something called mast cell activation syndrome. So the LDN is a more broad range way of regulating Tregs that actually has other benefits, right? Versus a Thymogen Alpha 1 primarily is going to be beneficial at the Treg level. Okay. All right. Let me do a quick screen share here. I want to show you a couple things. All right. So in terms of low-dose naltrexone, if you want more information, take a look at my immune system chapter here, and then look at this article on low-dose naltrexone and Lyme. Okay. All right. All right. And then in terms of if you're wanting more information about peptides, take a look at this article called Key Oral Peptide Strategy to Repair and Restore in Lyme and Mold Toxicity, of which I talk about a variety of peptides, including Thymosin Alpha 1, which you can mimic by using this product called Thymogen Alpha 1. Okay. And then finally, let me go over here. So this is my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. And as many of you know, anyone can purchase from me. I originally started this as a site for my patients, but it quickly grew in popularity to a lot of people that have tick-borne illnesses. And what I've tried to do here is basically find the best products to help you. Okay. All right. So anyone can order from here. Some advantages of ordering from me include I have fast shipping from my Austin, Texas location. Any orders that come in by 2 p.m. each day, Monday to Friday, ship out the same day. That's what our standard is. Okay. Number two, I offer the lowest prices allowed by the manufacturers. Number three, I cover your taxes if you happen to have a taxes associated with where you live. And number four, I pay for your shipping as long as your total order is over $50. All right. So anyone can order, and I welcome your business here too. All right. But in terms of looking at what peptide products we have here in this Thymogen Alpha 1 that I was telling you about, take a look at my integrative peptide section here. And the product that we were just talking about is this one here. Thymogen Alpha 1, okay? And so it can, the two peptide regulators that it has in it are called Thymogen and immune peptide A2, all right? All right. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about Th1, Th2, Th17, and Treg cells and how we regulate that. All right. Thanks for the question, Carol. Hello, Tom. Let's see. Treating the 3 Bs. Can't remember when I had a pain-free day or I was able to walk. 7 months ago, I was titrating lubrikinase. My arms tingled and wrists became weak. I exceeded my exercise tolerance with a 2-pound weight, straining my chest at the shoulders. When pain and weakness spread to my arms and hands with a loss of coordination, I discontinued the lubrikinase. I can only tolerate mild activities of daily living and passive therapy. The original strain has never healed. Your thoughts, please. All right. So first of all, I guess I would need to know a lot of different things. I would probably need to ask you a lot of questions, but let me give you some observations, okay? So I know I have not seen lubrikinase do something like this before, so I'm not sure if it is or is not related to lubrikinase. I just want you to know. It does sound, though, like you have reached a tolerance level. And when I hear of people that basically start developing problems with using low weights, I start wondering about mitochondrial injury that can occur as part of tick-borne illnesses, not related to being lubrikinase, but it happens from tick-borne illnesses, all right? So and if you get injured mitochondria, that can result in ongoing pain, ongoing muscle weakness, ongoing dysfunction of your nerves, etc. All right. So you may want to consider looking at that. So let's talk about it real quickly. So your mitochondria are your energy factories that are found in every one of your cells. And the mitochondria, and by some estimates, we think there are 300 to 400 mitochondria per cell. The covering of a mitochondria is made up of a double fat membrane or a bilipid membrane. And on the inside of the mitochondria is where sugar and fat are burned through a bunch of chemical reactions and using some transporting of electrons to create cell fuel, which is called ATP. Okay, all right. So they're your energy factories, all right. Now, when you have a chronic infectious state, the immune system, in trying to get rid of those infections, is manufacturing chemicals like cytokines. We've talked about those in the webinars before, but also a lot of oxidation agents, all right? And guess what oxidation agents like to damage? Fat membranes. And they'll damage the fat membranes of your mitochondria, which can result in mitochondrial dysfunction. And signs of mitochondrial dysfunction are persistent weakness and fatigue and inability to recover after exercise. And again, there are some theories that say when you have chronic pain, part of that is because of mitochondrial dysfunction as well, too. Also, keep in mind, if you have mitochondrial dysfunction, your nerves can't recover, your your white blood cells can't work as well, your thinking can't be as well, etc. All right. So some things to think about in terms of doing mitochondrial repair work. Number one, you want to rebuild this injured membrane. All right. And so one of the things I like to use to do that is a product by Research Nutritionals that has proprietary mix of fats that make up these membranes. That product is called ATP 360. And it's made up of a mix of these phospholipid fats plus a bunch of micronutrients used by the mitochondria to work better. That is 3 pills 1 time a day. And I suggest people use it for at least 6 months. All right. Be aware, Research Nutritionals right now is running a shortage of that product, and they don't have any more in stock. I still have some in stock, but we should be well stocked up with it again. And by the end of this month is what they're telling us. All right. If you should think about using it and that product is not available, then what you could do is a substitute of a different Research Nutritionals product, which is called ATP Fuel. It's ATP 360 is the next generation of ATP Fuel, but you could use ATP Fuel instead to rebuild your mitochondria membrane covering. All right. Number 2, you want to fix your mitochondria from the inside by adding in glutathione. So liposomal glutathione is a very strong antioxidant made in every one of our cells. Our mitochondria uses it to fix damage on the inside, but our mitochondria don't produce much, all right? So if your mitochondria are injured, figure that they will have used all of their glutathione and that their own glutathione gas tank is empty. And so what I like to use to repair the mitochondria from the inside then is to use liposomal glutathione. And the product I like for that is a product made by Research Nutritionals, which is called Trifortify. And I like to have people take a teaspoon a day and at least do that for 6 months as well, too. All right. All right. And then finally, another thing, given it sounds like you've got tissue injury with this as well, too, and nerve injury as part of this, you might want to consider adding in the peptide called BPC 157. BPC 157 is a peptide that's made naturally in our stomach lining, but is made by the stomach to help assure good functioning of your intestines. All right. But it's been found a long time ago by athletes, especially, that it helps with tissue repair. And what we now know is it's very effective at doing muscle, tendon, and joint repair, and even nerve repair. In addition, it does have some ability to help your mitochondria work better as well, too. All right. And so you might consider doing that also at 1 pill 2 times a day. Okay. So those are some things for you to consider. And again, really to get under all of this complete, I'd have to ask you a bunch of questions, which I don't have the ability to do in this kind of a format. Okay. Let me just do a quick screen share here for you here. All right. So in terms of the products I was just telling you about, so the ATP, again, there's this ATP 360, which I do believe we still have in stock, but I know it's starting to run low. And if it's gone, this is the ATP Fuel product I was telling you about that you could use as a substitute. The directions on this are a little bit different. They're not 3 pills 1 time a day, but rather this is 5 capsules, excuse me, twice a day, basically, is how you would wind up doing this one. Okay. And then in terms of the Trifortify product, Research Nutritionals offers this in a couple flavors, watermelon and orange, and a number of different sizes and individual service packets. The reason I like this product is its liposomal formulation makes it so it's very well absorbed. Research Nutritionals has got some good science that they've done showing elevated cellular levels of glutathione in people that use this product. Okay. All right. And then finally, again, take a look at my peptides article about BPC 157. And then also take a look at, in terms of mitochondrial repair, take a look in my section here called Energy and Fatigue. and this article called Power Up Your Mighty Mitochondria. And in here, I talk about how to do mitochondrial repair. And there's a number of steps, but the two big ones are to do either an ATP fuel or an ATP 360. And then the second part is to increase the glutathione. Those are the essential steps. Okay. All right. All right. Good luck to you, Tom. Hold on here, everyone. Hello, Kelly. Let's see. Just got my nutrition genome report. How do I interpret the section on methylation that says things related to MTHFR and the mental cognitive section that things related to MAO? I haven't used their report before, so I'm not sure what they're feeding you and how it can be interpreted. I don't know. I haven't used that test report to see how they spit out their data. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a good source there. Hello, Janelle. Let's see. What are your thoughts on doing hyperthermia? Does it do anything for Babesia? All right. So hyperthermia, everyone, is basically a way of that may kill germs that involves becoming very hot. Okay. And one of this, and where it was used prior to our having antibiotics, the ability to use antibiotics was in treating syphilis when there were no antibiotics made. This is before penicillin was even made. And it was a way that they would treat syphilis, which is also a spirochete. So because it seemed to have helped to a degree, not completely, on a syphilis, there are people that thought since Borrelia Lyme is a spirochete that maybe this would work on Borrelia. Okay. All right. So in theory, it should be able to kill it. All right. Now, there is a clinic in Germany called Clinic St. George, and their protocol involves heating people up to about, I think it's 107 degrees, 107, not 100.7, 107 degrees, and putting them under sedation so they can tolerate being heated to 107 degrees for 30 minutes. And I think they do it for a week and a half, daily for a week and a half. All right. And then with the idea in mind that they claim that this is going to kill Borrelia wherever it is in the body. All right. But making it difficult to interpret their results is that when somebody is also getting the high heat at their facility, they are on IV antibiotics at the same time. And it may be that the reason people have any benefit at all, if they get benefit, is you get good IV antibiotics, and also you get good circulation of those IV antibiotics in the person that's superheated up. All the small blood vessels dilate wide open and let those antibiotics in. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of studies being done that show whether it actually is effective at killing germs, there aren't any. All right. So we don't have studies that say hyperthermia kills Borrelia, hyperthermia kills Bartonella, or hyperthermia kills Babesia. But the strongest case to be made for hyperthermia might be against Borrelia because it is also a spirochete too. All right. What I can tell you is, based on my own experience, is that when I would have my patients that wanted to try it out would go to Clinic St. George, number of them might do well for a month or two, but basically their claim of being able to wipe out the germs is false for the majority of people, and that the majority of people would eventually become symptomatic again. All right. I just want to be candid about that. If we look at the one group that has done some research looking at the effectiveness of hyperthermia is a group called My Lyme Data that is the research arm of LymeDisease.org. Okay. And what they basically have done is they now have about 16,000. They may have more now. 6 months ago, I think it was around 16,000. But they have about 16,000 people enrolled in their data center, and they periodically will query these people with questions to learn something. All right. And so about 4 years ago, they did a study looking at what alternative medicines have you tried, what was the effectiveness, and what side effects did you have. All right. And in their study, I believe they found that hyperthermia helped about 35% of people. All right. So let me show you where you can go look at this data, all the data that was done in that study. All right. So I figure out where I put this article. Let's see. No, not there. Okay. So take a look at this article called What Works? Navigating Prescription and Alternative Medicine Lyme Treatments. All right. And this is based on data from the 2 Lyme data studies. And one of those studies was their alternative medicine study. All right. And this is a table from that study. And so for hyperthermia, this is hyperthermia here. Actually, I guess it was 45% of people found it to be moderate or very effective. All right. But I will tell you that is short-lived. That was my experience on that. All right. And again, if people are finding it beneficial, it may not have anything to do with the heat. It might be that they get IV antibiotics at the same time. All right. Now I'll show you, you can actually, there's an interactive chart that LymeDisease.org has. All right. That's right here. And this, if you hover over each of the areas, it gives you a bigger breakdown. So while 45% reported effective, only 14% very effective, and 31% said moderately effective. Okay. All right. All right. But you can go over each of these alternative methods like Rife machines, where 35% of people said it was moderately or very effective. And again, there, 14% found Rifing very effective, 20% moderately effective. Okay. All right. So do I think it can help Babesia? I honestly don't know. Because people that go to Clinic St. George, again, they're also being treated for the other infections too at the same time. So I don't know whether it's killing Babesia or not. All right. I will share with you again, people may do better, but in following people that had been there, I found that the majority got worse beginning about 2 months afterwards. Okay. Hello, Janella. See, test in 2021 showed positive for Lyme, retested and everything negative, but still feel horrible. All right. So, Janella, I would see if you can find a Lyme literate medical doctor who can evaluate you to see if you still have enough symptoms suggesting Lyme, or enough symptoms suggesting Bartonella, or enough symptoms suggesting Babesia that you should still be treated. Okay. It is possible when you have a lot of germ activity going on that those germs release chemicals that suppress your immune system and make it so that your testing is negative. Because the 2 major ways we test to see if you have tick-borne infections is either to measure antibodies, and that would be an Immunoblot or Westernblot method, or to measure whether your T white blood cells remember attacking the germ, and that's a method called an ELISpot. But they're both ultimately immune system tests. And if your germs are very active and partying on, you can have negative testing because your immune system is too unhealthy to even react. Okay. All right. In which cases you need to consider whether you have tick-borne infections based on the clinical symptoms. All right. Now, I say review that with a person skilled in doing this, a Lyme literate medical doctor, because they can help you tease it out. You can also look at some of the resources on my site to see if you have enough symptoms still suggesting active Lyme, active Bartonella, or active Babesia. And let me show you how you would go about doing that. All right, so if you're not getting better or you're not well, you always have to consider, are the germs still active? Okay, number one. All right. And the second thing you need to consider is if you treated, did the treatment trigger too many yeast in your intestines? If you have too many yeast in your intestines, that's going to make you feel badly as well, because those yeast trigger too many cytokines to be made. All right. So as a starting point, take a look at an article that I have. Guess it's not going to be here. Hold on, I got to try to figure out where I parked this one article. Oh, take a look at this article. It's called, "Is it a Lyme relapse? Take these steps." And even though you're not necessarily describing a relapse, it still is a good way to work through it. So figure out, do you have too many yeast? All right. And I tell you how to go about doing that using resources on my site. If you don't think you have too many yeast, then see if you have enough symptoms suggesting Bartonella or Babesia. All right. And that would be the next step. Actually, I need to update this with better references. I'll show you where you can find the two articles I would look at. And then the third thing is consider if you have Lyme based on your symptoms. All right. Now, it looks like I need to update that article. So let me tell you how you would figure out based on symptoms if you have Lyme, Bartonella, or Babesia. Okay. Take a look in my section here called How to Diagnose. And in my article called How to Diagnose Bartonella, look at the symptoms that suggest Bartonella. If you have enough of them, then you probably have Bartonella. In my article, How to Diagnose Babesia and Chronic Lyme Disease, if you have enough of the symptoms that I list out for Babesia, then you probably have active Babesia. And in my How to Diagnose Chronic Lyme Disease, I walk you through using the Horowitz MSIDS questionnaire. And if you have enough positive answers on that, then there's a good chance you have Borrelia as well too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Catherine. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks so much for all you do. I keep feeling like my intelligence is decreasing and I'm becoming less alert, to the point where I'm scared I may have to stop driving if I get any worse. What do you recommend to combat the brain fog? Currently taking herbal antibiotics, support my detox, and take various supplements for symptom management, also taking curcumin for cytokine regulation. All right. So first of all, brain fog is both a symptom and a functional issue. Okay, so brain fog, some people, when they say brain fog, they mean they literally feel cloudy or foggy. In addition, it also can mean for some people their cognitive function, meaning their ability to think, starts getting impaired. Okay. And the main way that the infections lead to problems with brain fog is you develop too many cytokines. All right. So at the center of taking care of brain fog is you want to do things to lower cytokines. I like that you're taking curcumin to do that, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. In addition, when you have a lot of brain fog, I like using glutathione as well too. Okay. So glutathione will help clear toxins from your brain, but it also is useful at lowering cytokines by telling your white blood cells not to make as many cytokines by lowering oxidizing agents that tell them to make cytokines. All right. So the way that to regulate cytokines the strongest, curcumin gets in your white blood cells and blocks the cytokine factory from working, while glutathione stands on the outside of those cells and swats down oxidizing agents that are telling the factories to make cytokines. All right. All right. Second, and I would do that if you got a significant brain fog, you might even look at doing 1 teaspoon twice a day of the Tri-Fortify product. Okay. All right. And then those are a couple things I would do. The other thing that is useful if you're for brain fog is to take a peptide that focuses on brain function. All right. And the peptide that is most associated with helping brain injury and repair of brain injury or brain trauma is a peptide called cerebrolysin. And that is made by a company in a supplement form called CerebroPrep by Integrated Peptides. And I would start by doing 1 pill a day. If you're not noticing much improvement after a month, you might go up to 2 pills 1 time a day on the CerebroPrep. Okay. All right. So those are some things to think about. Okay. All right. Let me just show you that one peptide product here. Oops. Looks like hold on a minute. I think I messed up there. Oh, I see what I did wrong. All right. Let me do that screen share again here. Okay, so again, the peptide formulations that I recommend are made by a company called Integrated Peptides. Their product that helps with brain injury, brain trauma is this product called CerebroPrep. And I would start by doing 1 pill a day. And if that's not helpful after a month or so, you might go up to 2 pills 1 time a day. Okay, all right. But that's where I would start. And then I'll show you an article here too. Okay, so I have a whole article on brain fog. And in here, I talk about various stuff. So number one, the major fuel source for your nerve cells to work correctly is coconut oil can be helpful. Okay. You want to get your infections under control and lower toxins. You want to take things to lower cytokines, like I was just talking about. You want actually to do things to fix your mitochondria. And one of those is the glutathione, which helps with cytokines, also remove toxins, and do phospholipid repair with either an ATP fuel or an ATP 360. And then think peptides. And the one I would go with here I talked about is the cerebrolysin one in your situation. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Janella. Can hyperthermia break up biofilms from Babesia? I honestly don't know. I have not seen any science done on what hyperthermia actually does. Okay, be honest with you. All right. Thanks for the question. Hello, Susan. Let's see here. I seem to be past my BART, Babesia, and Lyme via 3 years antibiotics and herbals. Recently, I'm experienced a lining of fatigue and suspect long COVID. What is recommended for treating long COVID aside from zinc, B12, and omegas? All right. So Susan, treating long COVID is complicated, and I'm going to show you my article that addresses the many facets of it. All right. and I'll have you take a look at it. All right. But before you go there, the one thing I would suggest looking at, if you've treated and your tick-borne infections seem to be doing well, you still have to be concerned that as a result of having treated your tick-borne infections, and also as a result of having COVID, because COVID, one of the big things that COVID does is it causes a disruption of the good bacteria in your intestines. That as a result of that disruption of the good bacteria, as well as being on antibiotics and their disruption of the good bacteria in your intestines, that there is a good chance you might have intestinal yeast overgrowth. All right. And if you get intestinal yeast overgrowth, that triggers an excess production of cytokines and release of toxins that makes you feel sick and tired. All right. So I would start with looking at whether you might have too many yeast in your intestines. And after you look at my article on how to diagnose yeast, if it looks like you do, take a look at my newly rewritten article about how you treat intestinal yeast overgrowth and follow the steps there. All right. Let me show both of those to you. All right, so I have a section called yeast. This is the article where I walk you through how you figure out if you have yeast based on symptoms. And then I just rewrote this week and released an updated version on my article about how you kill and prevent yeast, okay? And in here, if you do have yeast, I talk about the key parts. One is make sure you're getting enough prebiotic fibers and polyphenols into your intestines. You can either do that through diet or by using supplements. So you need to feed the good bacteria. Number two, based on your intestinal symptoms, figure out which probiotic you should be on. And I tell you how to do that here. And number three, if you have active intestine yeast overgrowth, I give you sample protocols of what you can take to get rid of those yeast in this section down here. Okay. All right. And then in terms of if you look at this and you figure you don't have yeast, or if you treat too many yeast and you don't get better, then the next thing you do want to look at is my long COVID protocol. And that's this article here. I will let you know there's no silver bullet. The thing about long COVID is we think that there are actually a lot of things that COVID causes that results in you being sick, okay? And those things are persistent viral infection, organ damage that happens as a result of the COVID entering your cell using these ACE receptors. You get mitochondria injury. You get disruption of your microbiome, the good bacteria that make up your intestines, and you get chronic inflammation. And you need to address all of these at the same time. It involves taking a lot of things, okay? Before you go there, clear yeast out first. That I have found that to make a big difference for a lot of people where we were thinking they might have long COVID. We got their yeast cleared out and it took care of everything and they're back on their way again, okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you, Susan. Hello, Mindy. Hold on here just a minute. All right. So how do you handle anemia and tick-borne relapsing fever? What do you use for tick-borne relapsing fever? All right. So tick-borne relapsing fever is a type of Borrelia that in theory can cause period fever, like on an every 2 to 3 week basis. All right. There are certain strains of Borrelia that are thought to do this. For instance, there's a strain called Borrelia myomodi that may give you the relapsing fever, and there's other ones that do it as well too. The way to see if you have tick-borne relapsing fever is to get the Immunoblot for tick-borne relapsing fever from IGeneX. That's probably your best way of testing for it, all right? And the predominant treatment that you're going to wind up using is doxycycline. And that seems to do a good job for most people. I'm not sure herbally what works because usually I resolve it with doxycycline in my patients. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Oh, one thing I should say too, I'm not aware that tick-borne relapsing fever gives anemia. So I would be pursuing looking at having your doctor do blood testing and figure out if there's other causes of your anemia. Okay. So standard blood testing, look for the standard things that cause anemia. Usually in a woman, the most common reason for anemia is heavy periods causing iron depletion. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Mindy. Hello, Kay. Let's see. My test for Epstein-Barr IgM, I think the one that NKG had in the past is very high, way above the range one doctor's office told me. I had mono, the real mono test, with partial lung collapse at 5, with jaundice at 17, and just mono at 19 some time ago. I've had chronic Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella. Is there something I should be doing for this high Epstein-Barr level? Thank you. All right. So what you're talking about is your doctors have measured the antibody levels for Epstein-Barr, and they found probably your IgG, not your IgM, but your IgG is high. That was the one that would be elevated in chronic infection. And therefore, they're wondering if you have active Epstein-Barr. All right, so let's talk about that. So Epstein-Barr, another virus called cytomegalovirus, and another virus called human herpes virus type 6, which is a respiratory herpes, not sexually transmitted herpes, are actually quite common virus infections found in healthy people. I want you to hear that. These are common viruses that we find elevated antibodies against in healthy people. All right. So what happens is we get these viruses and our immune systems put them under control and keep them in check. And they do that by making antibodies. All right. So it is possible that when you have high antibodies, it just means your immune system's doing what it's supposed to do, keeping the germ load under control. Regrettably, the best way that we can see if you're having trouble with Epstein-Barr would be to do a germ load test and tell us whether your high antibodies have been effective at keeping your viral load under control, or is your immune system making high antibodies because it's losing the battle and it's trying harder and harder and you have high viral load? Regrettably, we don't have accurate ways of doing that. All right. So just finding that you have elevated antibodies does not mean Epstein-Barr is causing you a problem. It could mean your immune system is doing a great job keeping it under control. Could mean it's lost the battle. All right. So my approach in looking at these chronic virus infections is when I'm treating somebody for tick-borne illnesses, I actually don't do any testing initially to see if people have elevated antibody levels against cytomegalo, Epstein-Barr, or human herpes virus type 6. I don't even check, all right? Because even at the beginning, if they came back elevated, I would not do anything directly about it because it may not even mean that the viruses are active, okay? If they have gotten active, it's because of immune suppression from Lyme and your tick-borne illnesses, and that if you were to treat your tick-borne infections, the immune system should kick on well enough that it puts them back under control. Having said that, though, I recognize there is a subset of people that maybe the viruses do get active. And because we don't have a reliable way of telling for sure, what I usually will do is if somebody's about a year or so into treatment and they still have a lot of persistent symptoms, one of the things I'm going to start considering is, do they have active chronic virus infections? And I will look to see, do they have elevated antibodies, which at least tells me that they got viruses in them. And if they do, then I like to do a 6-month course of herbal antiviral treatment to try to get these chronic viruses under control. Okay. And what I like using for my chronic virus treatments are olive leaf extract, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, working up to 1,500 milligrams 3 times a day. I like using mushrooms, a type called reishi mushrooms, 400 milligrams 3 times a day to boost the antiviral part of your immune system. I also like using a transfer factor mix made by Research Nutritionals. Transfer factors are chemicals that tell your white blood cells to target certain infections. And there is a transfer factor mix they have called transfer factor plasmic that has in it transfer factors against these common virus infections. And I would do that 1 pill twice a day. I want to let you know that Research Nutritionals, I believe, is going to stop manufacturing their transfer factor line, unfortunately. So we do still have those products, but I'm not sure how long we're going to have those specific transfer factor products. Okay. But that's the approach I like to use. Okay. All right. I'll show you an article that you can take a look at to get more information here. Let's see here. All right, so take a look at my infection treatment plan section here. And my article called When and How to Treat Chronic Viruses, all right? And in here, I lay out why I delay treating for them, but at a point, if somebody's not doing much better, I might treat. And the things that I wind up using are the olive leaf, or monolaurin. I prefer the olive leaf, the reishi mushrooms, the thymic protein A we can no longer get, and this transfer factor plasmic you can still get, but probably not going to be available much longer. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Kate. Thanks for the question. Hello, RC. Let's see. Question for Dr. Ross's webinar. Hello, and thank you, Doc. You're welcome. I have a question about mixing binders. If you're taking Welchol 3 times a day, and it was 2 times, but it wasn't helping, and the other binders are activated charcoal, metaclay, chlorella, and hawthorn, which of these binders can be taken together? And when I was with you, you pushed me up to 4 times a day, which seemed to make things even better. So would it be prudent to take all the binders except for hawthorn together 4 times a day? There are no detox issues and sensitivities, no issues with taking too many binders. Just need to know which binders can be taken together. Also, is Welchol as strong as cholestyramine? All right, so Welchol is as strong as cholestyramine, and you can take it along with charcoal, the bentonite clay, which is metaclay, and chlorella. And you can take them all together, and you can take them 4 times a day, to answer your question. Okay. All right. As long as you tolerate them, you can do that. The other thing I would suggest that you probably should look at if you're still having issues, and I haven't treated you for a long time. If you were my patient before, because I haven't been treating for a while now. If you're still having issues, I hope you've come back to look at 2 possibilities. One, is your workplace or your home colonized? Are you still being exposed, basically? And number 2, if you're not getting these toxins down, are you manufacturing the mold toxins? And the way that happens is from being in moldy environments, sometimes we breathe in the mold spores and they start colonizing, living in our nose passages and in our intestines. And we become our own mold toxin brew pub. Okay. So if your environment is clean and your levels are not coming down with good binders, you've got to start wondering, are you producing them? There is no good culture test that can prove that. And so at a point when somebody's not getting better and they have a clean environment, I'm going to add in a antifungal medicine called itraconazole, 100 milligrams, 2 pills 1 time a day, to treat intestinal and sinus colonization. And once somebody is stable on that, I'm going to wind up using a nose spray of either nystatin, itraconazole, or amphotericin B to spray in up into the nose passages a couple times a day as well too. All right. So I hope you have somebody helping you look at all that as well too. All right. Good luck to you, RC. Hello, Carol. So let's see. You're also wanting to know, is stem cell treatment effective? You know, they generally no. So, but let's talk about that. So stem cells that were done here in the States years ago. So not all stem cells are equal, right? So stem cells, in theory, should be able to turn into anything that is damaged. So they can repair damaged immune system. They can repair damaged muscles. They can repair damaged tendons. Okay. All right. And that is if they are of a stem cell, which are known as pluripotent. They can become anything. So the major source of pluripotent stem cells is to take embryonic stem cells, which are not available here in the States. You can get in India, you can get in Mexico, and I'm not sure if you can get them in Serbia. All right. All right. In theory, embryonic and pluripotent stem cells should be able to fix anything, in theory. All right. Here in the States, however, what has been done is mainly stem cells that come from umbilical cords or from your fat. And these are stem cells that are mostly are turned into connective tissues, not into new immune cells, not into new brain tissue, not into whatever, right? And here in the States, the benefit we had from doing stem cells years ago was actually very disappointing. The Lyme data figures for stem cells, as it was done here in the States, not using embryonic stem cells, basically shows only about 5% of people got benefit. At great expense, too. A lot of people paid a lot of money for this, but they only about 5% got better. Now, the major reason may be, again, that they weren't using pluripotent. They were using stem cells that only could turn into a limited number of tissues, not into everything, all right? I have no idea about Swiss Medica in Serbia, though. Okay. All right. All right. So for more information, if you want to look at this a little bit more and to get better understanding what I mean by pluripotent and effectiveness, etc., take a look at my article on stem cells here. And I lay out, actually, my Lyme data said only 3% of people got benefit from doing it. Okay. But again, it's a more limited type of stem cell therapy that was done here in the States. Okay. All right. Hello, Nilofar. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella. And after 2 years of combination of antibiotics and herbal treatment, I don't see that much improvement. So for now, my doctor wanted me to have a month break. You mentioned that I may have yeast and or mold when I asked you last week, which I am looking into. But if I want to restart treatment of Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella again, where do you recommend me to start from? And which option of treatment do you think is better option for someone like me? My pre-treatment symptoms are coming back, extremely low energy, etc. I feel that all treatments the last 2 years have been in vain, so I don't want to go another 2 years with the same results. Also, what are your thoughts on infrared sauna blankets? Thank you. All right. So Nilofar, I don't know how to advise you because if it's not yeast, again, which I made the case for looking at last week, and I'm glad you are looking into that, I would need to know more about what specifically you tried, for how long, what effect it had, etc. I would also need to know whether, based on your symptoms, I think that your Lyme or your Babesia or your Bartonella, all three are still active. In other words, I would need to conduct a whole visit with you, which I can't do. So I don't know how to tell you that. Again, I'm glad to hear you're looking in to see if it's yeast, because often that is the thing that makes it look like you're not getting better. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Oh, in terms of infrared blankets, they are good at heating you up. down to 2 centimeters to 3 centimeters depth in your skin, equal heating, which causes all of your blood vessels in your whole body to dilate, which then results in better perfusion of your antibiotics deep into your tissues. So they can be helpful. Okay. You get some detoxing out of it as well, too. All right. All right. Let's see. I think that is it for me for tonight, everyone. There's more questions, but I've been with you for about an hour and a half here already. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I've enjoyed being with you here tonight. Again, I am off next week. As you know, I usually go 3 weeks in a row and then take a week off. Next week, I'll be visiting with Dad in Colorado Springs, 93-year-old Dad, at his assisted living facility. So that will take most of my energy, believe me. Anyhow, it's been good being here. Take a look at your email tomorrow morning, somewhere between 9 and 9:30 a.m., and you'll get an email from me with a summary of what we talked about tonight, and also a link to sign up for the next series of webinars that will begin in August, and also with a link to the recording as well, too. When you get that, help me reach people. If you think you're getting benefit, other people you know with Lyme and tick-borne illness as well, too, forward the email to other people. I'd appreciate it if you'd help me do that. All right. And yeah, good luck, everyone. Take care. Good evening.